A Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I got to sit down with Justine and Paul from Terren Design in Melbourne. The team at Terren have a really cool and exciting range of design services, including limited edition architectural pre-designed home plans. I really enjoyed getting to know Justine and Paul, and they're doing some really cool and cost-efficient designs all around Melbourne and beyond. What I particularly enjoyed about this week's show is we covered a lot of ground, including cost-efficient but high-quality designs. So let's get into it. Paul and Justine from Terren, welcome to Build Hatch.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much.
That's okay. Now, we're recording this in lovely Melbourne, and I'm really looking forward to this one because I really like what you guys are doing with Terren. If I can start with you, Justine, how did you guys sort of come together and form Terren?
So I had just been through my own kind of house design process, which was, fraught with its own issues. And our third partner, Rodney Seidner, is a really close friend of mine. And he'd been helping us along the way. He had just helped us find a building surveyor. And I said to him, what can I do to, repay the favor? And he said, well, actually, my business partner, Paul, and I have this new idea. Can you have a look at it? So they introduced me to the idea of Terren, being that they were going to create this new offering of architecturally designed homes that would be limited edition, but would be pre-designed and then adjusted and able to be tendered. My response was, guys, couldn't you have done this 2 years ago? But then my next response was, this is brilliant. It's exactly what the market needs. How can I help and how can I be part of it? And they very generously invited me to become the third partner. Thus, Terren was born.
Now, tell me, what does the word Terren mean?
It's an Albanian term, and it's about the impression and from the earth and the ground up. And we like that sort of analogy because it is about, growing your own home, your own place to live and place to be on your own plot of land. And we just thought that was a nice way to sort of introduce a new brand into the marketplace, with a name. And our first range of homes that we've released is, called the Botanical Collection, which is, again, it's all designed around nature and, coming out from the ground.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think COVID has seen a big shift towards, I guess, people going back to their roots across all sorts of things, whether it's their exercise, their diet, their jobs, and you guys are now talking living standards or living environment, if you like.
And the other part of it is also that, as you would well know, getting out of the ground is the hardest part of the building process. And Terren is kind of the solution that gets you out of the ground a lot faster because, the design process is much faster, but going straight to building permit is much faster. And, so really that out of the ground element comes into fruition much more quickly.
In a nutshell, explain to myself and the listeners, what does Terren do?
All right. So we provide limited edition architecturally designed homes with an indication and understanding of what it will cost you upfront. And you also have the ability to see your design in front of you before it's ready. The design and the intention is to provide that to a client within a very short space of time, much faster than the typical architectural process. Obviously, town planning and other matters might affect general sites holistically, but the purpose is that you have an understanding of what's in front of you, you know what things you like, you know how it can fit your land, and you can make a quick decision and have ultimate control. Because we're not a building company and because we're providing you with an architectural design, this can be tendered by anyone. You can work with any builder of your choice to realize your dream.
So you guys effectively provide a fully costed house design, basically.
With engineering, with thermal assessment, with pretty much everything that you need to get to straight to building permit. So our clients come to us with their land survey and their soil report. Because we've pre-designed these homes, that are pretty much 80% of the way finished, we make all the adjustments that's required by them and their land, both internally and externally. and we get it ready for them really quickly. And the other important part of Terren is that they're limited edition designs.
So I guess a key attribute of that is that if I'm a consumer and I'm going to engage Terren to put together a full turnkey set of plans and costs, I know that it's not going to be the same house in the next street or the next suburb. They're unique.
Absolutely. We've spoken to people who've had really frustrating experiences where they've, chosen a beautiful home offer from a builder, and built that home, and then been really excited about it, and 6 months later seen almost the exact same home turn up just around the corner from them, and they felt like that really lowered the value of their home. And we want to make sure that that never happens to any of our clients. So we've made our plans limited edition, both by number and by suburb.
Essentially, you guys have come up with certain designs that suit particular size blocks, so a certain design that would suit something that was 800 square meters or 500 square meters or even smaller sizes that are, say, 300.
Yes, Aaron, that's correct. So the designs of the home were based on, a suburban lot in Melbourne, which we defined as sort of standard, even though we do know that standard is, very subjective, and, it could be your 6 meter block or your 18 meter block. It depends where you are. But we felt a 13 and 14 meter width block were appropriate sites to look at, facades, if you like, and then work towards a 500 square meter minimum, or something that would enable clients not to have to go through the town planning process or avoid it where possible. And, then only leaving sort of the residential code or certification items to be dealt with in terms of overlooking and overshadowing for your neighbours and your amenity. And we have 4 homes that are part of the botanical collection, and they're all effectively cousins of one another. They share a similar materiality and ethos and architectural style, but they all provide a different function. They all have a slightly different number of bedrooms and bathrooms or program. And depending on a site that comes through our door, for example, a house in McKinnon in Victoria, which we're working on, our clients came to us with a 17 metre wide block. So for them, site coverage and town planning was never an issue, but they were able to fulfill a wider brief and, make a larger garage or make a wider bedroom on the front of the house. So our plans are very adaptable, and they're able to be adjusted for different size lots. And it lets the client sort of pick the style of home that resonates with them.
We design these homes with this, somewhat standard block in mind, but because we adjust them, we usually change from what that originally is. So, for example, we've had approaches from clients who have an 11 meter wide block, and our homes still beautifully fit on their block, but with a single garage, for example, as opposed to a double garage. So, we make those changes both internally and externally to make it work for variance in block size.
All right, Paul. So does that mean you guys skip the council assessment process with your designs?
So it's all block dependent, and on a certain type of block, which doesn't contain sort of a council overlay, whether it be like a flood zone or a heritage overlay. Yes, you would pass the town planning sort of regulations, and then you would need to skip straight to the building permit or certification stage at the end. And that's the section of the building which we would comply with as part of our documentation.
So that essentially helps speed up the process because you guys know how the system works, and then therefore you guys, with your design background, you're able to look at a site, decide whether it ticks the boxes or if there's a few other hoops to go through.
That's absolutely correct. And then again, we would obviously encourage our clients to come with slightly larger blocks. It's easier for them and faster. But even if it does require, a town planning aspect, it's something that we can assist with.
Another thing sort of worth noting is that when some clients have come to us and said, look, they're developers and they really want to save on holding costs for the land. So can we please have a look at their block and see if it's suitable to get plans ready while they're waiting for settlement? And that's something that we actually can do as long as they have access to get a survey and soil report. We're able to get those plans ready to build really quickly and, have it ready for them very soon after settlement.
Yeah, look, that's a huge advantage. So I suppose you guys are working with, say, a sophisticated investor where they know what they want, they have a site in mind. And I guess the key advantage of that process is you guys could negotiate, or if you're a sophisticated investor, you could negotiate a medium term settlement, so a longer term settlement. And you could say, I'll pay for your asking price or whatever the asking price is, but I want a 16-week delayed settlement so I can get my necessary permits in place. And that's where they then turn to you guys, and then you guys go hell and leather to get these plans approved. So that by the time that property has been settled, you guys have got these people, their plans ready to go, ready to build. They know what it's going to cost.
Absolutely. And that's, been a really interesting point for developers, but also for, your regular residential customer who doesn't want to be, if they're building a home to live in, they don't want to be renting for a longer period. It comes in lots of different ways. And what might be interesting to you is that at the moment we're developing a townhouse, and obviously with the townhouse we'll have some town planning requirements, but we'll be able to, if the land is suitable, get those townhouse developments ready to go straight to town planning after settlement. And that's again saving you 6 to 12 months in that planning and design process.
Yeah, look, that's a huge advantage. All right, Paul. So with these bespoke designs, tell me about, some key features of these projects.
Absolutely. Well, being an architect, and an idea of truth to materiality is what I like to try and engage in all of my buildings. I like people to feel natural light. I like buildings to be designed in an architectural passive way where possible that suit the right orientation, and some of those just key general architectural principles that people can forget about, and they can get swallowed up by sustainability and a whole lot of other terms which can be deemed more important. If you just get the basics right, sometimes the living quality can be really enhanced. So they're the general terms of how we've designed these. And we also like to facilitate full height glazing where possible as an architectural feature. We definitely know in Melbourne that's a pretty big sort of selling point, and providing a good aspect to your external spaces. Not as sunny as New South Wales and other parts of the country, so getting as much natural daylight in is key. We also have nice timber flooring and stone throughout the home. And we have 3 meter ceilings on our ground floors, and then 2.7 meters, on the first floor, which is what's the standard built into our work. So from the get go, you're never compromising on, height and window sizing. It's standard, and it's part of the base design.
So if I'm a sophisticated buyer or an investor, and I want to engage Terren, if I go through with that process, like take me through the steps, so I come to you like in the early stages. Can I come to you guys when I've made a phone call to a real estate agent and said, hey guys, this is what I'm looking at. Can you help me? Like take me through that process.
Yeah, so we typically get a lot of inquiries from people who are just looking at sites. They'll send us the domain link, and they'll say, look, does this look suitable for a Terren? We'll straight away look at it and give them a general assessment of whether that block size and shape and aspect would be suitable, give them some ideas around it. And then usually if they go forward with purchasing that block, they'll have a really good understanding of what they can build on it. And that's something that both developers and regular customers and clients really appreciate in having that, having us look at their blocks before they even purchase them.
And is that, is there, and do I like make a small commitment at that stage? Like how does that work?
No, upfront, we wouldn't ask for that. I mean, there's a certain level of work that goes into testing and tweaking, and that's just part of our service to make sure that it's the right fit for you. There are many architects out there that and clients that ask them for, can you do a pre-design? Can you check it out? Can you see what can fit on my block? But our designs work to certain sizing, so it's quite easy for us to adjust at a base level what we already have to see if it works within their site. It gives them a good indication and a visual of what can actually work.
And yeah, we don't ask for any payment until a client commits to wanting a Terren on their site. So we'll usually show them down the track once they've purchased the block. We'll show them what our design would look like, based on their site. And then if they decide to commit, that's the point where they would pay a deposit to us. And from there, we work with them. We go back and forth with them, work out any changes that they want to make, and then we only start designing and putting it into engineering once they're happy with everything that they've asked for.
And I'd probably like to jump in there. One added point. I think this is where some of the value comes in. We, as part of our designs, our clients get fully engineered drawings to complement the architectural set. They also have an energy report, or a BASIX report equivalent, which is part of that design. So when they get to permit, all of those sort of subsidiary documents and consultants that you need to get the job done are there, and they're part of it.
Yeah, look, I think that's really important. And I immediately started to think I've worked with a really good conveyancer in the past who, has never ever charged me upfront for looking at a property. And it's a pretty common occurrence on the good guys, the good, successful people. It's about saying, look, we can look into this. Hopefully you're the successful bidder or the successful buyer of that property. But we know that if you don't get it, then you'll engage us on the next one, and there'll be another site where you'll turn to us. So that
Absolutely.
key early upfront investment of time to kind of show them what the possibilities are, it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, it's important to us to be creating relationships with the people that are going to be building these homes. And, part of what we do to create those relationships is we engage with them at that early stage. And, Paul provides expert advice that gives them a really good understanding. I had this terrible building experience with not knowing enough before, committing to purchase land and then committing to a builder. And I just want to make sure that other people don't have to have that same experience. And Terren really does provide a solution in that space.
Yeah, I think that's particularly important at the time of recording this, which is in 2021, and the market's obviously out of control in terms of, well, I would even say property, but definitely construction and costs and supplies and materials. So just having that ability to price up a project to give those people, I guess, the confidence to go ahead and build it. So you provide that turnkey package of costed projects and the ability to go to market with a verified costing. So do you then recommend builders, or do you offer that service as well to be able to introduce people to reputable people to be able to then build that verified project?
Yeah, so at a base level, all of our designs are costed by S&K Group, which I'm also a part of. It's a design and construction company, and all of the designs have full trade breakdowns. The costs are understood based on the materials that are selected, and that just gives the buyer or the client that initial upfront understanding of where it may sit. But from that point, they're not wedded to having to use it. It creates a benchmark. It creates the cost that it could be built for. And then what we do is we do have a network of builders, but often our clients also have, other people that they would like to bring into the mix. And the best part about it is that, the plans are theirs and they can give them to whoever they want to price and cost the job. They own it. It's a very, unique situation in the market where, it doesn't sit with a larger party. It becomes the client's possession, and that they can choose to do whatever they want with it. And that, Terren, we can part of it along their journey to assist wherever they need. And tendering is one of those things which, we've assisted with in the past, and, providing a really clear trade breakdown to our clients to use to give to builders is often putting the right foot forward to having a good outcome and letting them at least evaluate and understand how equal is my project amongst, others and peers. Because it's all too often in the industry, you feel, some builders will give you 5 items as a breakdown, some will give you a single line figure, and others will give you 40 items as a trade breakdown. So having a comparative table to sort of assess it back in the buyer's hands a little.
So essentially, there's no obligation to go ahead with a certain builder. That's I guess the key attraction with Terren and you guys is that I can come to you, have my project drawn up. I have the confidence that it's going to fit onto my site. You guys turn it around pretty quickly, and there's a price there. So I'd imagine you guys have a certain budget price that suits each particular design. Is that how it works? So you sort of say, well, what's your budget for this site? This design would suit that.
The 4 designs that we have already created have a verified build price attached to them, and as Paul mentioned, that gives a really good indication of what the home can be built for. But obviously, if someone has a builder that they really like working with, or even if they want to owner build it, they can go straight to that process. Tendering is one of their options. What we try and always be is flexible. So we're trying to provide the most flexible process and in a really fast time frame.
And in a way, by default, it's become a bit of what we call like an 80-20 rule. So we know that the homes that are visible for people to see online, are 80% perfect for them. And there's always 20% of the aspect that they want to change, whether it might be an interior finish to something that we've picked, whether we've put timber flooring down in the homes as standard design. They might want polished concrete, and they're all things that can be facilitated when we go through that initial briefing phase.
It's really good that they can know that price up front out of those 4 key designs. Within reason, this is the approximate budget price to build this particular design.
Correct. Yeah, for a very architectural home, one thing that's quite difficult for people to get their heads around, and so it's maybe worth discussing, is how a lot of the designs that people are looking at, particularly from volume builders, need to be upgraded to achieve things like the 3-meter high ceilings and, the full height glazing and those kind of architectural features, which we include as standard as part of both the design, but also part of that verified price. So, the way we see it is the price that we're giving on the website, although that's only the price from one builder, it gives an understanding of what the homes can be built for without having to upgrade anything.
Take me through your tendering process, because tendering is obviously a very lengthy process. There's a lot of drawn out emotion into it. People are scared of tendering. Some people love tendering. Like, it's such a huge part of building, and it's often done too late in the piece. So take me through the process. Like, how long does that take, and what's involved with tendering?
Tendering is like the unspoken stage of an architectural fee, or something that that you only get to at the very end. I think for residential architecture, tendering and negotiating are 2 sort of different types of a process that need to be tackled for the right job. And market conditions such as now could be one of those avenues where negotiating might be a better option. But for example, with the McKinnon house, which I mentioned earlier, that project was tendered to a number of builders, and we assisted with that process. We provided our equal trade breakdown blank sheet to all builders to provide a fair and equal price that was measurable against one another for the client to make an executive decision. But in terms of the process, we just try to set really clear parameters and make sure everyone's operating within that same barrel at the same time. That's the only fair way to do it. Builders need to be treated fairly too, as do the clients, as do the architects. And I think that if you do that and you're open and transparent and honest with your communication, you often just get the best results because those builders want to be part of the project.
We've even created a blank tendering form, which we provide on our website, free for anyone to use, whether they're a Terren client or not. Because one of the things that we kind of discovered along the way, and both from Paul's experience and mine, was that, as he was saying earlier, not all tenders look alike. And it makes it really difficult to compare apples with apples if you're asking a range of builders and they come back with a range of different ways of tendering. So by providing that blank sort of tendering form that says, fill in the trade breakdown in this way, we help both our clients and anyone who's interested go out to tender in a way that is, clearly set out from the get-go.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And so, as you guys know, I'm completely independent and neutral, and I always like to check out our guest work. So I've actually checked out some of your work, and I particularly like the Dalliah architecture project, because when you first hear about these concepts, you can't help but think, what do they look like? Is it a case of this beautiful architectural piece at the front and then some pretty standard stuff out the sides or the back? But when I went and checked out the Dalliah project, like it has these curved facades and these other key architectural projects. So how have you been able to achieve that milestone, which every architect and builder and client are chasing? This it's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
How are you able to design a building with architectural features that sits in that like really good market?
With our architectural experience, we've learnt the ropes over the years in terms of what our clients, what sort of echoes with our clients, what our design style is, and items like the curved facade and are a feature to the Dalliah home, and emphasizing canopies and openings are important sort of architectural gestures which can create an element of difference. We want these homes to be unique. We don't want them to be like every other home in the street, and we also don't want them to sort of be paired back to what else is in the marketplace, which can often, but not always, be paired back to simple bare bones just to get the biggest house on the block that's humanly possible. So we feel like this, something like the Dalliah as our largest home is that connecting piece to create a point of difference in the market, which can resonate with many different people, and people go, wow, that's different. That must be a really expensive home done by a top tier architect, etc. So whilst that's not our vision, it's about creating a point of difference and a unique home for people to live in. Justine?
But at the same time, the materiality of these homes that Paul has applied to them, having these brick facades. We've had quite a few people comment both on the Instagram and in reality that they don't look like the new modern homes. They still hark back to being, traditional looking in terms of the brick materiality, but then they have these new styles to them. So they look like they've always been there, but that they're they're not modern for the sake of being modern. They're, Paul will never put in a curve just because it's a curve, and curves are of now.
I also think that, adding elements to curves, or I believe spending the budget where the budget is appropriate on a house, is an important avenue to take. So, we really do emphasize our facades of our building, which are the money shots, or where people will look and see their buildings the most, as important pieces to sort of create that feature or that feeling that creates their own home. It comes back to my experience and in developing these homes, we spent nearly a year creating them, before we'd even launched the brand properly, to make sure that we were creating unique sets of plans that sort of had the architectural feel, but that were all different, that provided a slightly different offering to our clients. And all of that stems back from, clients coming to us at S&K Group in the past going, before we even start designing, how much is my house going to cost to build? Well, what would you like in your house? How big is your house? How many bedrooms? So, sort of these questions are sort of guiding lines to got us to where we are today. So understanding the cost, what do I get? Can I see it? What does it look like? All of that information is available on our website about our design. So you can see what the bathroom looks like. You can see what the living room looks like. Our plans are available. Everyone can see the plans. There's nothing to hide or to share. It's available because we want people to be able to envisage that they could live in one of these. That's really important.
And of the 4 homes that we have available at the moment, we tried to make sure that there was, although they are part of the same collection, there was points of difference with each of them. So, for example, the Dalliah home is our largest home. It's a 4 or 5 bedroom home. The Juniper and Wisteria are also double-story homes, but slightly different. We've got elements like the Wisteria has bedrooms, quite a few bedrooms on the ground floor as well as on the first floor. So that might suit a different type of family. And then we've also got Viola, which is a single level home. And, that's, we kind of see that as the home for downsizers who don't want to compromise. But it could also just be for a family that has a large plot that they want to build a single level home on. There's, so many different kind of briefs that we're trying to fulfill amongst these 4 designs that we have available. And as we move forward into different typologies, like, for example, the townhouse.
Does the townhouse sort of appeal to, say, a first home buyer or second buyer, or, that younger demographic?
One thing that I would say is that in general with Terren Homes, as there they're not necessarily going to be for first home buyers, but they might be for first home builders. So the difference I see there is I do feel like in order to have made the decision that you want an architectural home, you either have had to been given decent advice that has guided you towards the resale price of an architectural home, or you have to have been through a process before that you never want to repeat. So, people come to us from those two kind of backgrounds. And in general, so far of our clients, they don't tend to be that very first home buyer or builder. They do tend to have a slightly more sophisticated or educated background in terms of building.
Yeah, look, I think that's important to flag, and we sort of talked about that earlier about being that sophisticated buyer where they, they're not just buying something uneducated. They know what they want. They know what things are going to cost, and it's
And they
about
know what
coming
they
to
don't
you
want.
guys. And they know what they don't want. They've been
Mhm.
burnt, or they understand. They've learnt the hard
Absolutely.
way, which
Yeah,
is,
I learnt the hard way, and it really, one of the client that we keep referring to in McKinnon, they're actually spent the last 10 years in Canada. They've both built homes there and renovated homes, and so they came with an understanding of, we don't want to renovate this home that's already on the block, because at the end of the day, we want a home that we're not compromising on anything. And so that, Dalliah, and the Dalliah has even been made bigger for them, was that perfect balance of knowing what they were getting up front, but being able to have absolutely everything that they could ever want. That their home has a man cave, for example.
And then the ability for them to be able to tweak those little things they know they have loved over the years in developing some of their other properties.
So with your 4 projects, the cousins that you
Mm-hmm.
so politely referred to them before. So with those 4 designs, what do you do then moving forward? Do you tweak those designs and use that existing footprint and then change it up? How do you sort of take that approach?
So I guess it's more about looking ahead. How do we sort of, keep providing different options? And I think every time we speak to a new, landowner, developer, or client, we're learning more about, what people want. And I again think over the last 2 years, what people want has changed. Whether it be in terms of size or location, or aspect, regional or suburban, etc. We're going to look towards a few times a year releasing a different version that is going to be suited to what we feel is relevant for the market. So townhouse for us has been this next journey that we're taking on, which will be released in early 2022.
So we originally, when we first started working on Terren, we thought, well, let's design for a block that doesn't need town planning, and so that it can go straight to building permit really quickly. And what we found was that although a lot of people are interested in that, we kept being approached by developers saying, well, can you do it? Can you do this as a townhouse? Can you do this as a townhouse? And so the more that kind of query kept coming in, we thought, well, this is something that we should look at, even though obviously those blocks will have that town planning requirement. And so the townhouse design that we're working on at the moment has a similar aesthetic to the existing designs, and it has similar, features in the sense that they'll be architectural townhouses. They'll have a higher value at the end of the day because of being different to every other townhouse that you can find on every Melbourne street at the moment. And but they'll also be adjustable in a pretty major way for whatever that particular council, particular block requires.
So what are some of those adjustables that you just mentioned?
Sure. So, one of the key attributes is the sort of on-boundary and off-boundary nature of townhouses. And some of these come back to sort of council requirements, because with a townhouse, we'll have to have that process applied. So our design, we have a design as part of the townhouse which sits on the boundary and provides, no access to the rear from the front facade. And then the other half or the other component can be off the boundary. And clients will have the ability to choose whether they will want both boundaries clear, or some councils will require you to be on boundary if you're within a certain distance. So the design can be replicated and sort of transferred across councils and across different land types.
So effectively, we're creating two different townhouses, and across the two of them, there'll be a lot of differences. One of them, for example, will have a laundry on the ground floor, and one will have a laundry on the top floor, as has become very popular. As Paul mentioned, one will be on the boundary and will have a courtyard bringing beautiful light into the ground floor of the home, whereas the other will be off the boundary and will have, a first floor void that also brings in light. So, we're creating these two different typologies, and then from there, two different homes. Our clients will be able to say, I'd like, one of each, or I'd like two of the one, two of the other, whatever it is, will be completely adjustable for them, but we'll have those two sort of floor plans ready to go, and ready to be adjusted according to what their site requires.
So I could essentially have a site in North Melbourne where I could fit 4 townhouses on the site, and I could come to you and I could say, I want 4 of these townhouses, and they'll either be one of 2 configurations or they could be mixed up to have a combination of the 2 configurations. Is that right?
In a nutshell, yeah, and obviously site dependent. Yes, you could. You could sort of pick and choose what works best for you, and would site it accordingly to sort of work within the parameters of the block.
All right, guys. Now, the people listening to this, if they're a designer or architect or anyone building or looking at designing something, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, but what's one little secret or tip on how to save costs in the building process?
Sure. I think no one wants to compromise on, the beauty of their building as a designer, as an architect, and, price and clients' will and expectation is something that we really have to listen to. And, as part of this, the Terren product, and also how I like to design buildings generally, spending the money where it's most valuable to the client is a tip. And it sounds a bit cheesy and corny, but, especially in some suburban blocks where the sides of buildings may not always be, visible or readily accessible to, unless it's a driver or a passerby. Let's say that we will turn a little bit of the budget to the facades, the key spaces. Whether if you're in your front yard or if you're walking up to the front door of your home, you really get to see and appreciate your home, and so does everybody else. And if you can find ways to sort of channel the spend or the feature per se, which shouldn't affect the architectural quality of the home, its function and its use. You can always use a slightly more economical material on those simpler facades, or sort of not so exposed, and that will be a surefire way to save a bit of money.
So spend money on the money shot and be a bit more economical on those facades that are a bit out of reach.
Correct.
I'm actually going to take a spin on your question. From my experience, there is, what goes into a home. My husband and I often are talking about how 90% of what you spend is, in stuff that you can't see or touch. And then the last 10% that is the stuff that you touch, or stuff that you see. And then only the last, 5 to 2% that you actually interact with on a day-to-day basis. And that lands up being where a lot of people cut back. We'll cut back on the appliances, or we'll cut back on, we won't get that zip tap that we really wanted, even though those are the things that you interact with every day. So my top tip is, in order to not compromise, is to actually go all the way back to the beginning and get a really, really good understanding of what goes into your build. And, do not just take a first price from a volume builder, for example, as gospel. Get an understanding of how much exactly it's going to cost if you change to a 3-meter ceiling, and what that adds to both the value of your home as well as the cost of building it. And then make those kind of comparisons. And so that if you're going to compromise, you're compromising on items that aren't going to affect the resale, but are going to affect the build price when you actually go to build, and so that it's the same as what you were planning to spend, or still affordable to build for you.
Now, I think, Justine, that's coming from a place of experience where you've learnt that the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're 100% right. And that suits your target market, where that's people having an idea or being sophisticated enough to appreciate and understand what is my budget on this build?
Mm.
Where can I save money? As opposed to the other market that we've all seen and heard and probably been burnt along the way many times before, where it's more of a case of we get to the end of the project and then try and save money. And that's where you're 100% right. That's where those key things, whether it's the polished concrete that you walk on or a beautiful tile in your main ensuite or the zip tap unit that you mentioned, they're the things that often get left out of the build at the end because they have run out of money. So, which just shows how important it is to deal with practical people.
Interestingly, Aaron, just to add one more, I actually, we do a lot of value management for all of our clients because no one ever signs the first price they ever see. That's just not, everyone knows that's not how it goes.
That's a good tip.
Definitely don't sign the first price. Is that changing the finishes is one way to save money, but it's often a very small component. And we encourage, we've designed the homes in a certain way for Terren, and I've designed generally as an architect to make sure that the house sort of resonates with the budget. So there's no point designing a house that's bigger than what you can actually afford to begin with. And it's a lot easier to sort of keep closer to your budget or where you need to be if the house is sized correctly. It's much easier to pull it back at an earlier stage when it's a sketch on a piece of paper as to, you've got engineering and consultancy and a whole lot of other things intertwined. And, often reducing the scope by 10% or the size of the home is a much more economical way to save money than to go from a certain price tile to another one or so on and so forth.
If I'm interested in engaging Terren and having you guys involved in my project, is there a typical cost? Like how does the pricing work with Terren?
All of our packages, all of our designs that are available at the moment are all under $30,000. So in the region of $25,000 to $30,000, depending on the size and scope of the home. And that's with the 80-20 sort of rule applied. We'll adjust the home pretty much 20% of the way there. If our clients require further changes than what we've allowed for example, if it impacts the engineering, we then quote them on those additional changes. And to date, our packages have never come to more than $32,000, including engineering to make a 550 square meter home.
And that includes all the costings as well.
Includes
so
the engineering,
pretty good value for money.
Yeah. And thermal assessment, which are things that, normally would be on top of your architectural fee. And so we see our prices as pretty much half of what you'd usually be spending on an architectural design.
At least.
Yeah.
At least half. Yeah, look, 100% on the money there. And I think also, to be fair, there's been a lot of people that have been before you, been many that have been unsuccessful at this. And, as I said, I've checked out what you guys are doing, and you're obviously doing some exciting projects. And to be able to have that ability to pull that off, come together, work together as a team and offer these projects, these turnkey design solutions for people that want to have a unique home, that's economical and practical and ticks their boxes. I think it's kudos to you guys for being able to make that work so successfully.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
It means a lot coming from someone with your level of experience in the game. As we've been saying along, it does take a certain level of experience to understand some of these benefits. And I think you've been well across them in both what you've been through personally and professionally.
Yeah, look, thank you. And I think you're onto something really good here. And particularly now that the world kind of had that aftershock effect of COVID and people have kind of gone away, and I'm generalizing here, but they've kind of gone away and chased that lifestyle. But as more and more businesses, and including myself being a business owner, as more and more businesses get back to, the new normal in inverted commas, I think people will have to come back and maybe not everyone, but the majority of businesses will find their people, they need to come back closer to their work. Yes, they can work at home remotely a couple of days a week, but all in all, still commuting an hour and 20 minutes into Melbourne or Sydney, wherever, it's still a bit of a commute. And I think that's where your market will start to, be very popular with those kinds of people that want to get back into the scene.
Yeah, and of course, we've over the last year, a lot of people come, talk to us and say, "Well, does it have a dedicated home office?" And and that is definitely something that we're thinking about and designing for. And yeah, I think it's as you're saying, after COVID, both with what everyone's been through, I think what you see reflected in the property market at the moment is people wanting to spend or being able to spend more on homes that they really love because they've realized just how important that is to their lifestyle. And we hope that our designs can be a part of people in Melbourne, Sydney, all across Australia really loving the homes that they're in.
Look, my prediction is very that, and that is that I think people will realize it's not a case of moving away from work. It's more a case of living within commutable distance to work, even in the suburbs, but the value of that home office environment, being able to work from home, but still live close to work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the best
Absolutely.
of both worlds, of course.
That's
what everyone
right.
wants.
All right. So the people listening to this who want to reach out and get into contact with you, whether they're looking at buying or acquiring a site or have a site in mind and want to talk to you guys about being involved in their project, what's the best way to go about it?
So I would say the first point of call is to have a look at our website, which is Terren, terren.com.au. Then they can either get in touch with us. There's a phone number, email address there, or email hello@terren.com.au. They can also get us on Instagram, which is terren.tn, Facebook, which is Terren, LinkedIn, which is Terren. We're all over the place, and we're ready to engage. We tend to respond really quickly, and as we kind of mentioned earlier, we love helping people decide whether their block is right for this or right for them, and so we're always willing and able to do that.
Well, that's fantastic. Look, I encourage people, particularly to check out your Instagram page. All of those amazing designs that we've been talking about on this show are all up there and looking spectacular. So, Justine and Paul, thank you for coming on to Build Hatch, and
Thank you
look
so
forward
much.
to staying in touch and watching Terren continue on.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks so much.
Well, that was another Build Hatch episode with Justine and Paul from Terren Design. And I certainly encourage you to reach out to these guys if you are currently weighing up a house design on your block of land or you have a knockdown site. As usual, please check out our own Instagram page and other socials where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and some of the features of the work that we talk about. Have a great week, and you'll hear me again on the airways next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.